Hi, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Bless Central. And if it's your first time visiting, welcome. This is our third season now of Bless Central. If you haven't been here before, do feel free to check out the channel and see all the videos in the other two seasons. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, click the notification button. So every time I do a video, you will be notified. Apart from that, stay tuned and be blessed. So this season is going to be a bit different to what I've done previously. This season, what we're going to focus on exclusively is the fruits of the Spirit. So what we're going to do literally for the next, including today, for the next 10 weeks is discussing and looking at each one of the fruits individually. For today, I'm going to set a foundation in terms of the fruits of the Spirit and the importance and the significance of it. And then the following weeks, we'll look at the different fruits. So next week will be all about love. The week after will be all about joy. The week after all about peace, and so on and so on and so on. And really go into detail about it. And you know, when I was praying, was having a bit of time off. This is what God gave me. So I want you to talk about the fruits of the Spirit. And before we even get started, I'm going to start off in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 and 23. I'm going to read it in your hearing to understand where we're coming from. So this is Jesus speaking. He says, "Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth forth not good fruit is hewn down, and is cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Not everyone that saith to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many shall say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, and cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, thou workers of iniquity." And as we read this here, this is Jesus speaking. And he quite clearly said, it's by their fruits that ye shall know them. It's not by them preaching. It's not by them doing YouTube videos. It's not by them being on the worship team or in the choir. It's not the fact that you pay your tithes. It's not the fact that you've been in church for many, many years. It's by their fruit that you're going to know them. He said that many shall come to me in that day and say, Lord, haven't we cast out demons in your names and we've done all these things in your names? But he says, depart from me, your workers of iniquity. I never knew you. When we listen to that phrase, I never knew you, speaks about intimacy, which means that you can be in church. You've been going to church all these years and you can be operating your gift. You can be preaching, singing, teaching, but have no level of intimacy with him. Because when you have intimacy with God, it brings forth a product and it brings forth fruit. But God is saying, you haven't got any fruit. And the reason why you haven't got any fruit is because I never knew you. There was no intimacy. Yes, you've got a gift, but the Bible said that the gifts of God are without repentance. When we look in heaven, Lucifer was in heaven, and his very being was made up of musical instruments. That's what it was made up of. And even when he rebelled and he was kicked out of heaven, although he was kicked out of heaven, his ability to produce or use music was never taken from him. So gifting alone is not enough. What Jesus is saying is that it's by the fruit that you produce that I will know you. He says in John 15 that I am the vine and you are the branches. And he says that you cannot produce fruit without me. The branches by itself cannot produce fruit except they are connected to the vine. But what Jesus is saying here is that people aren't connected to him. There's no intimacy, but there's still ministry. We're still busybodies. We're still active in doing things in the church, but there's no level of real intimacy. And you know, when you look in the natural, when a man and a woman are intimate and they come together, it brings forth fruit, which is fruit of the womb or fruit of the loins. When intimacy is there, there is an evidence. And what God is saying, when people are intimate with me, they will produce fruit and it will become the fruit of the Spirit. Don't be impressed by people that can preach. Don't be impressed by people that can teach. Don't be impressed by the Hebrew and the Greek. Don't be impressed by what you see people doing on the public stage or in the public forum. Be impressed by their fruit that they produce, because that's what God's looking at. This is real kingdom identity, and this is real kingdom authority when we have the ability to produce fruit. Now, the question is, what does this fruit look like? And you know, we know that the fruit of the Spirit is described in Galatians 5:22 and 23. You've got love, joy, peace, etc., etc., etc. But just to clarify, when we say about the fruit of the Spirit, it's one fruit. It's not many different fruits, it's one fruit made up of different components. If you look at light that comes from the sun, when you look at the light, it appears that the light is one color, whether you want to call it white or yellow. But when that light is refracted, it's broken down into multiple colors. So when it's sunny and it's raining at the same time, what happens? The light is refracted through the raindrops, and that light is broken down into many colors, and that's how we get a rainbow. When we look at God himself, the Bible says that God is a spirit. That's singular. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. The Shema, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. However, when you read in multiple parts of the book of Revelation, it talks about the phrase where it says, these are the seven spirits of God. And then when you look at ourselves, I'm one person. However, I'm body, I'm soul, and I'm spirit, but I'm one person. Many times you might say something like, my spirit can't take her. You ever said that? You're talking about your spirit, but you're not disconnecting your spirit from yourself as being one being, but you might refer to your spirit individually. And I'm saying all this to say this, it's one fruit, but the fruit is made up of different elements. And we're going to talk about the different elements in upcoming weeks, but it's one fruit. When God comes back for his church, he's coming back for those that are producing fruit. In fact, he's going to come to take the church out of the church. He's going to come to separate the wheat from the tares. And the people he's going to be coming for is those people that are producing fruit. And it's so important and it's imperative that we as believers, we produce fruit. And we don't think that because we're in ministry, because we preach, we teach, and we do all these things and part of ministry, that we think that everything else is okay. We have to produce fruit. Because it's by the fruit that people are going to know us. The destination in life that we're trying to get to is not the goal. It's who we become and the fruit that we produce. Let me say that again. The destination that we're trying to get to in life is not the goal. It's who we become, and it's the fruit that we produce. For example, the children of Israel were in Egypt for 400 years of slavery. We know that their destination, as prophesied, God spoke to Abraham, I believe it's Genesis 15 or Genesis 12, that's going to take them out from a foreign land. They're going to be under oppression for 400 years. Then they're going to be taken into the promised land. They thought that the promised land was the destination, but it wasn't, because the children of Israel were taken out of Egypt through the wilderness. They got to the promised land, but they were not able to go in because they weren't producing the right fruit, and the people who they had become was not the requirement that God was looking for. They were taken out of Egypt, but Egypt was not taken out of them. And as a result, they were not able to enter into the place or into the position that they wanted to go into. So I'll put it to you, you may be looking to move into certain areas of your life, but unless you produce fruit, unless you become the person that you're meant to become, it can hinder you from entering in. Jesus says quite specifically, many are going to come to me in that day looking to enter in the destination to the kingdom of God. And I'm going to say to them, depart from me, you workers of iniquity, I never knew you. You're not producing fruit. It's by the fruit that you will be known. And what Jesus is saying, you thought the destination was entering to heaven. The destination wasn't the physical place of going to heaven. It was all based upon who you become and the fruit that you produce. So I'd encourage you now, when you're looking at your life now, you might be looking to get a new job, looking to get married, looking to move forward in a business venture, whatever you're looking to do, that's not the destination. It's who you become and the fruit that you produce. And in some cases, if you don't produce the right fruit, it can hinder you, even stop you from entering in. Jesus spoke, and he spoke, I believe it's Matthew 16, and he says, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? He asked the question, what do people say about me? And in the same token, we have to ask the question, whom do men say that I, James Beckford, am? In relation to the fruit of the Spirit. What does my wife say about me? What do your children say about you? What does your family say about you? What does the church brethren say about you? What does your manager or your employer say about you? What do your clients say about you? Whom do men say that you are in relation to the fruit of the Spirit? Do they see love? Do they see joy? Do they see patience? Do they see meekness? Do they see self-control and temperance? Do they see the fruit of the Spirit? Because it's by the fruit you're going to be known. What do they see? I was speaking to a friend, and they were saying, a while back, they went to a business establishment, and the business establishment was run by someone who said they were Christian. And they said that when they were in the establishment, the way that the person spoke to them and the disrespect and how rude they were, they wanted to leave the place of business and never do business again. But this person is still professing to be a Christian. And this is the danger. We can be in the work environment. We can be speaking to unsafe family members. We can speak into our children, telling them to come to church. But they're looking at us, and they're looking at the fruit that we produce. And the fruit that we're producing it's not love, it's not joy, it's not peace, it's not patience, it's not long suffering, it's not goodness, it's not kindness. They're not seeing any of that. So what they're seeing is a total contradiction. You're saying this, but then what I'm seeing is this. And that's exactly what Jesus was saying. You're doing all these things in terms of ministry and works, and you're saying you're a child of God, but when I look at your fruit, you're not producing it. You're a work of iniquity. And we as a church, if we really want to attract the world, if we really want to get people, especially this day and age in terms of the pandemic and COVID, with everything that's going on, people are impressed by the preaching. The world's not impressed by the teaching. They're going to be impressed by the fruit of the Spirit and what we can do and how we treat people. That's what people are going to be impressed by. Otherwise, we're like the people that spoke to Jesus and say, well, didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we do great miraculous works in your name? Didn't we do prison ministry in your name? Didn't we work in the church chaplain in your name? Didn't we do things in the community in your name? Didn't we have the food bank in your name? Didn't we have prayer meetings in your name? Didn't we do YouTube videos for you in your name? Didn't we do all these things for you in your name? And God's just looking at us, and he's just like, well, I never knew you, because if I knew you in those intimacy, you would have brought forth fruit. You'd be just like me. You'd love like me. You'd have peace like me. You'd have joy like me. You'd have patience like me. You would be like me, but when I look at you, I'm not seeing any of these things. I'm looking at the fruit that you're producing. I can see all the gifts and all the talents you've got, but I don't see any fruit. And it's by your fruit that you're going to be known. In John 15, verse 16, not only does Jesus talk about producing fruit, but it's fruit that remains. That's the key thing. Anyone can produce fruit at any random point in time. Anyone can show patience when there's no need to show patience. But when a certain situation happens, does that patience remain? Anyone can show love to anyone when things are all good, everything's going great. But when that person does something to offend you or offend your family members, does that same love remain? When we look in the Bible at the prodigal son went out and left. The other son stayed. He produced fruit. That's faithfulness. It's good. It's faithfulness. But we know the story that when his brother came back, instead of showing love and compassion and mercy and goodness and kindness, he was angry. He produced fruit. But when his brother came back, he showed his true character. He had fruit in the beginning, but the fruit didn't remain. When Joseph is sold into slavery, he has fruit. and the fruit remains. Even when he gets to the point where he comes before Potiphar's wife and she makes a sexual advance towards him, he had the fruit of temperance, which is self-control, and he says, no, how can I do this to my God and my Lord? How can I do this? He had fruit from the beginning, but that fruit remained all the way through. When you look at the 3 Hebrew boys, they produced fruit, which was faithfulness. They had it from the beginning, and when they were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, and Nebuchadnezzar says, I will turn up the fire 7 times hotter and I'll throw you in. The 3 Hebrew boys could have chosen to bow down and worship the other idols, but they said, we're not going to bow down. We've got fruit, and that fruit is to be faithful to God, and this fruit is going to remain. If you throw us into the fire, you can do it, but our God is able to deliver us. But even if he doesn't, he's still worthy, and we're still going to produce fruit, and it's going to be fruit that remains. And this is the difference. It's not about just producing fruit when everything's fine. It's about producing fruit in the most difficult of times. It's about producing fruit when you're at rock bottom. This is what God is looking for. He's not interested in the preaching and the teaching. He's interested in the fruit that we produce. Having the fruit of the Spirit is having true dominion. Having the fruit of the Spirit is true kingdom identity. Having the fruit of the Spirit is true kingdom power. It's the power to love other people when they don't deserve to be loved. It's the power to love people that come against you, but you're still treating them with the same love, the same respect as you did before they offended you. It's the power to have joy in the midst of a crisis. It's the power to have joy when you've hit rock bottom. It's the power to declare that I've still got joy. I've still got joy after all the things I've been through. I've still got joy, and it's joy unspeakable, and it's full of glory. The reason why it's unspeakable, because I can't put into words, I can't articulate why I've still got joy during this pandemic, why I've still got joy when people in my family have died, what I've still got joy when all hell is breaking loose in my life. I've still got joy, and it's joy that remains. I've got the fruit of the Spirit. It's their power to have peace. It's the peace of God that passes understanding. It's the power to have peace during the chaos. It's the power to have peace when they're making redundancies on the job. It's the power to have peace in mind when you're going through a pandemic. It's the power to have peace in your mind when you're struggling, even with mental illness, when you're struggling with depression. It's the peace of God that passes all understanding. It's the power to have peace when you're struggling with work deadlines and you're struggling with things at work. It's the power to have peace, but peace that remains all the way through. It's the power to show goodness and kindness, not just goodness and kindness to your family and your friends, because anyone can do that. It's the power to show goodness and kindness to those that hate you. It's the power to show goodness and kindness to people at work, and you know the people at work don't like you, you know your manager don't like you, but you still show goodness and you still show kindness, just like the story about the Good Samaritan. But when those two types of people didn't integrate together, you can still show goodness and you can still show kindness despite how they treat you. It's the power to show and demonstrate faithfulness, even if it means I've got to lose my job, even if it means I've got to lose my reputation, even if it means I'm like Daniel and it means I've got to lose my life. I will still remain faithful. If you tell me that I can't pray, I'm still going to pray anyhow. You can come against me, strip me of my position, strip me of my title, throw me in a lion's, and I will still produce faithfulness, and I will continue to pray no matter the circumstance. It's the power to have meekness or show humility, that even though you may be in a position where you're above the people, you can still show humility and act like you're beneath them. You can have the ability to make yourself of no reputation, even though you're in a situation where you know more than everybody in your job, you know more than anybody in your church, you know more than anybody in your family. It's still showing that humility and not bragging and showing people what you want. It's the ability to show all these different types of characteristics in the one fruit of the Spirit. And lastly is the ability to have self-control, which is temperance, and to show self-control not only when it comes to sexual desires, it's self-control when it comes to food. That when you go on a diet, you can tell yourself no. It's self-control when you're on fasting and when you want to give up. It's self-control to tell yourself no. It's self-control when you're at the gym and you're doing weights and you want to give up when you've had enough. It's self-control to say no and to keep on going. It's self-control over your emotions, that when your emotions are going wild and your emotion want to lead you and direct you, you can say no to your emotions and say no, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. This is true kingdom kingdom power. This is true kingdom authority. And this is true kingdom mentality. It's the fruit of the Spirit. Jesus said this, and I'll end with this. And I'm going to just reiterate it one more time. He is the vine, and we are the branches. And without him, we can produce no fruit. Without intimacy with God, we cannot produce fruit. And not only fruit, but it's the fruit that remain. No intimacy, no relationship means no fruit. Jesus says it's by their fruit ye shall know them. So I would encourage you right now, whatever you're focusing on, you may be a person that's focusing a lot on ministry and preaching and teaching and etc. And one thing God had to get my attention was, Jamie, it's about the fruit. Are you producing fruit? It's good to do all those other things where you're preaching, teaching, but you have to produce fruit or it's all for nothing. And if his word has blessed you, I pray that you do share it, like, drop a comment and share it with other people. And join me for next week where we'll be talking about love. Next week is all about love. We'll be focused on love. As we know in the Bible, there's 4 types of love, but the love we'll be focused on is the agape type of love. And we're going to break it down and go into detail and show what it really means to love in terms of the fruit of the Spirit. God bless you and see you next week.